Welcome to Open Minds Radio with Alejandro Rojas. Open Minds Radio is your UFO news authority, presenting evidence and the latest news regarding the UFO phenomenon. Here's your host, Alejandro Rojas.
Thank you, Mr. Bob Dean. That's a gentleman who will be speaking at the UFO Congress, which we are frantically putting together now that it's the last minute, and it will start in like 2 days. Actually, tomorrow will be the beginning of the film festival where we'll watch some films and judge them. And the craziness, though, has already started for us here at Open Minds as we put on the largest UFO conference in the known universe. Of course, all we know of the universe is our little planet, so there could be a cajillion people meeting in Zeta Reticuli right now for a UFO conference, but we are unaware of that, or at least have no evidence to prove that such a conference exists. But we do know the UFO conference exists, and in fact, you can go there to prove it. We have a wonderful, magnificent, brilliant show today. It's going to be a lot of fun. We have on Stan Romanek, and I think you've heard of this gentleman because we've talked to him about him. We've talked to him and about him on the show many times before. He is the author of the book Messages, which chronicles his life as an abductee. Romanek's experiences began with the video recording of some incredible mass UFO sightings. Although he was a skeptic at the time, he began having strange dreams and physiological effects such as, and you may have heard of this, and if you're an abductee, you've seen it firsthand, but you know the scoop marks that abductees get, sometimes they fluoresce under luminescence, and he's had lots of that fluorescing, which I've seen firsthand with my own eyes. So all of this has led him to believe he is most likely dealing with extraterrestrials. And we'll be talking about that, and a lot of strange experiences have continued. It's actually kind of slowed down a little bit, but it kind of comes in peaks and valleys, but it's gotten very strange, and we will talk about that and the second book that he is planning right now. So that's a lot of fun, and I forgot I'm supposed to be trying to use my English accent, and I actually have a story behind this accent. See, it's harder to do when you're not having like an English guest like Nick Pope or Ross Hemsworth, because then you can hear their voice and you can try to copy what they're saying. Or if you watch Harry Potter, maybe after that you can do it. I've never been that good at it, I don't think, but we have an English gentleman who likes it when I do my impression, so I wanted to do that for him and thank him for his kind words and for listening to the show. Actually, when I started radio, because I was so dang embarrassed about doing radio, I was real shy about it. I started as Jonathan Smythe, the weatherman for the news. And so I do the weather at their college news station as Jonathan Smythe. And I remember the news lady was asked, "Who's that Australian guy you have on your show?" But it wasn't an Australian, it was me. And now I feel like the Wallaby. What was that? Rocco the Wallaby. Also related to the UFO Congress is a spectacular sponsor that we have, and they're giving away an incredible prize, and I talked about this a little bit, but I wanted to mention them again because we're so happy about their participation in the Congress, and that is the UFO Tour Group, top secret tours. They go through Arizona, New Mexico, visiting places where there are UFO kind of events and things going on, or have in the past. And the prize that they're giving away at the conference is a 14-day all-inclusive tour where you get to go to Los Alamos, White Sands, the place where they blew up the first atomic bomb. You get to go to Roswell, New Mexico, where there's this little UFO crash. You get to go visit the meteor crater. You get to go to Sedona and to the Grand Canyon and to a lot of wonderful, mysterious places. So that will be a lot of fun. So we're kind of delirious at this point with all the work we've done and the late nights and kind of the tedious envelope filling and badge printing. And I hope we didn't get really cheap envelopes. I just saw the episode of Seinfeld where George's fiance passed away from licking the cheap envelopes. But no, we don't do anything cheap around here. And if you go to the Congress, you're going to be blown away by our incredible posters and signs and videos and just a lot of cool upscale stuff that people are not usually used to. You can still get in, come to the door would be the best way, but 23rd to the 27th at the Radisson Fort McDowell, of course, we've talked about that. Come join us, check out some speakers. It's going to be a lot of fun. Stan Romanek is going to be there, so we'll talk about that. But before we get to that, let us bring on another incredible person who you will be able to meet at the Congress, and that is our news correspondent, and he shares some of the latest news with us every week. Welcome, Jason McClellan.
Heyo!
Heyo!
Greetings, everyone. This is your Open Minds News Brief for Monday, February 21st, 2011. NASA just unveiled designs for a reusable manned deep spacecraft that they are calling Nautilus X. And I wonder how long these guys took, huddled in a room, trying to come up with a way to use that name.
Right.
Because it's silly. I like it, but it's a little forced, it seems. Nautilus X stands for Non-Atmospheric Universal Transport, intended for lengthy United States exploration.
Well, maybe it's because of Star Trek, but they seem really pressed to come up with great names for their different projects because these names, you can tell they've tried to come up with something catchy and everything, probably for marketing purposes. And here they've done it again, Nautilus X.
I'd probably do the same thing. I like the name Nautilus X. The craft would be assembled from expandable structures, like the inflatable habitats being developed by Bigelow Aerospace. The design of the craft will allow it to be modified based on mission-specific needs. For example, engines and fuel will be able to be swapped out depending on the destination of each mission. Construction is projected to take at least 5 years and would cost approximately $3.7 billion. And I know that NASA and Bigelow have been in talks about working together. And I'm not sure if this is specifically working with Bigelow, though they do mention that the expandable structures would be like those that Bigelow is developing.
Well, and they could take a cue. $3.7 billion is nothing if you just charge for a ride.
Oh, yeah.
They can have that money in a heartbeat if they charge $1 million a seat, and boom, they got it. We're on the Nautilus. Again, it's super exciting that we're in a day and age where we're actually talking about spacecraft that we may see.
Well, what they need to do is they need to partner up with Virgin Galactic or SpaceX or one of these other companies.
Yep.
And have them sell tickets or sell rides and have this be one of their destinations.
Ooh, yeah.
You can stop and visit the Nautilus X.
Oh, man, I'm there.
And see, this is a great idea for, we talked last week and weeks before about bases on the moon and things like that, to have a place from which you can launch further into space.
Just like Star Trek, if you see them, they're building the Enterprise in space. They're building this thing in space. Then you don't have to worry about it.
And this Nautilus X is for deep space missions. And my thought, thinking Star Trek, is Deep Space Nine. You've got this thing out in deep space where the ships go, refuel, and then head somewhere
even
else.
Further.
Yeah.
How exciting.
They're on their way. We're on our way.
We're on our way, Zeta Reticulans. We're coming to abduct you.
You're crazy.
Actually, I just want to say hi. I'm not like a violent type.
I know. Don't try to fool people there. Extraterrestrials from several different planets crash-landed at a school in England recently. At least that's what the students at Bishop King Primary School were told. The incident is yet another instance of teachers at a UK school fabricating a UFO crash on school grounds to encourage creative writing and imaginative thinking among students. Local police participated in the event, performing a mock investigation and making themselves available to answer students' questions. Students were required to document the wreckage and interview police and staff members. Part of the simulation included performing arts students dressed as extraterrestrial beings. Students were required to interact with these beings, and they did so by showing the visitors around school and attempting to teach them reading and writing.
See, that's what ETs that's why they should land and not be so mysterious. If they land at a school, they'll have these very nice students to walk them around the school that they can talk with and have lunch with, and then they can go home. Why don't they do that?
Well, in this particular event, it looked like they were having a good time. The kids were happy to show them around. They were sitting in the cafeteria having lunch with them.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Instead, they're flying around, being all mysterious.
But, we've talked about these stories, for the past year. Different, several examples of this. I think all in the UK and in England. But schools, I don't know if all these teachers went to the same conference or something that said, do this for your creative writing. But I find it fascinating that not only are they wanting the kids to write about this experience, but they're also sort of walking them through the investigation process, having them, work with police and witnesses. And
yeah, it's cool, and it's a very open, of course, to the idea of
I'm wondering the real reason behind it.
Yeah, could be just that, and I, keep throwing out those numbers, but all the polls say, and especially they're even higher, I think in the UK we've seen some polls where people really believe in UFOs. Even though a lot of people are afraid to talk about it, they believe that we're experiencing extraterrestrial visitation. So I think probably a lot of these teachers are open to the idea and then introduce that into their curriculum, at least in a way that is acceptable to people.
Get the idea started and get kids ready.
Yeah, now their students will be more prepared.
That's right. So in a somewhat related story, when we make contact, how will we communicate with extraterrestrial life? You see on TV and in movies, all of the extraterrestrial beings conveniently speak English.
Yeah.
But who knows if that will actually be the case.
And Americans get really mad when people come to our country and don't speak English.
That's right. We're not going to learn your language, learn ours. We're lazy. Yeah. Well, researchers in Florida are practicing on dolphins. Dolphins have large, sophisticated brains, and a recent article in Wired magazine pointed out they have complex social structures, form alliances, share duties, and display personalities. The researchers in Florida created an open-ended framework for communication using sounds, symbols, and props to interact with the dolphins, with the goal of establishing a shared primitive language. According to the lead researcher, the study is the first of its kind because nobody has tried to establish two-way communication in the wild. Lawrence Doyle of the SETI Institute recently commented, "We've been waiting for contact for years, but we're not ready. We can't even speak to intelligent animals on Earth." And that's a really good point.
Yeah. I love that study. I think it's a really smart way to go. It's worthwhile. And, of course, I'm an animal lover, but it's cool to see, we've been able to do sign language with different primates, which is extraordinary. So who knows what the possibilities are?
I think it's a great place to start. I think in our search for extraterrestrial intelligence, that kind of gets overlooked. We think when they come here, that's great. Then we wonder what they're going to be like and all this. But the communication thing is something that not a lot of people think of first.
Yeah.
How are we going to communicate?
Of course, many of our listeners feel that we're already being visited. But what if we do become spacefaring and then we come across more primitive cultures? How will we then try to communicate with them?
Right. And a lot of the contact right now, you hear people saying, they talk about telepathic communication and things like that. But what about people who
we don't even know how to do that?
Maybe
I try it all the
aren't
time.
capable mentally, or we have no idea how it works. So just a general communication.
Those times where you turn around and I'm across down the hall staring at the back of your head intently, and it kind of creeps you out. I'm trying to telepathically communicate and it hasn't worked yet.
Oh, I hear everything you're saying. I
You're
choose to
ignoring
ignore.
me?
Yes.
Great.
Thanks. I found that's the best way to deal with you, Alejandro.
Maybe that's what everybody else is doing.
It's possible.
Because I'm at the mall and people turn around and look at me funny because I'm staring at them intently, trying to telepathically communicate, and they run, call security, and I gotta leave.
I think people hear exactly what you're saying. People are
They're
afraid
just
of you.
ignoring me.
That's okay. They'll get to know you someday, Alejandro.
Yeah.
In other news, the artwork of a New Jersey resident was displayed last week at a Jersey City art gallery. The artist, David Huggins, didn't just display his artwork, but also shared his stories behind the paintings, stories of personal alien abduction experiences. Huggins claims that extraterrestrial beings began interacting with him at the young age of 8 years old, and contact has continued throughout his life. In his painting titled The Packaged Gray, a gray alien woman is depicted holding an alien-human hybrid baby inside a container. According to Huggins, this baby is just one of more than 60 hybrid children he fathered with the depicted alien woman. The artist draws upon his training from the Art Student League and Hunter College in New York City to share his experiences with the world. His art show was called UFO Abductee Experiences Exhibition.
I think that it's cool in the way that it's someone who quite possibly could be having these experiences, expressing it in a productive way and probably helping him emotionally. It's fitting for our guest today who feels he's got similar experiences happening. But I gotta say, I like his art for the portrayal of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But he could take an art class or two.
Well, he did.
Oh, well.
He went to school for this, but yes, I think more school couldn't hurt, but
I guess any art that I think I can do is probably really not the greatest because I know I'm a terrible artist.
I believe I have some of your art on my desk right now.
It's my attempt at art.
I have it framed.
Well, maybe it's not as bad as I think then, huh?
It's worth something to me.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Clegg, your stuff is, or Higgins. Maybe we are artists. I didn't realize it.
Everyone's an artist, Alejandro. In news about Gary McKinnon, Janice Sharp, his mother, is demanding to meet with Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg. Sharp told Wellion Hatfield Times, "I've written to him at his constituency and at Parliament to ask for a meeting with him." Sharp wants to urge Clegg to honor the pledge he made before his election to stop McKinnon's extradition to the U.S. According to Welwyn Hatfield Times, one of Clegg's representatives stated, "I can confirm the Deputy Prime Minister has received the letter and will respond in due course." McKinnon, of course, is wanted by the U.S. for hacking into Pentagon and NASA computers, searching for evidence of UFOs more than a decade ago.
Yeah, what I think is interesting is really right now it seems to be, because I wrote the story on it recently for our upcoming magazine, is that they're afraid to tell America, no, we're declining, we're not going to send them over, because America's adamant about taking McKinnon. And that seems to be the issue. They're not willing to say no. And I wonder what would happen if they did. I don't know.
I'm sure that's what they're discussing because they are reviewing their extradition policy. And
well, another deadline just passed because they were supposed to make a determination, the Home Secretary, just this last month, because she had a year. So there's total silence over this case. And while for a year she reviewed it yet again. And they were supposed to make another decision here, but they haven't. And we'll see what happens.
I think you're right. They're probably worried about saying no.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anything would happen if they did. But
yeah, it's not like we'd send stealth bombers out to England or anything.
Well, we're sometimes jerks. We might, but
yeah.
But perhaps the biggest news, not perhaps, definitely the biggest news of the week is the International UFO Congress.
What about Jeff Beckman?
What about Jeff Beckman?
Did we talk about that last time?
We talked about that last week.
Oh, yeah. I get confused.
I like Jeff, but the International UFO Congress is bigger news.
That's big news.
There are tons of speakers we have lined up, fantastic speakers. Listen to all of these people who are going to be there, Alejandro. Rainbow Eagle.
Yes.
AJ, say his last name for me.
Jevaillard.
Jevaillard. Who told you that's how he says his name? Antonio?
Jevaillard.
He chastised you?
No, I've heard people say it too, but of course Antonio knows 32 languages, so he can say it better. But
right. I've always called him Gavard to his face.
I know.
He's
used
very
to say
nice.
that
He doesn't
too,
correct me.
until I met with our international ufologists. And
well, AJ will certainly be there.
Mm-hmm.
John Alexander, Michael Schratt, Carol Rosen, Robert Dean, Lloyd Pye, Kathleen Martin, our guest today, Stan Romanek, George Filer, Richard Dolan, David Sarita, Daniel Sheehan, Nancy Talbot, Linda Moulton Howe with James Peniston and John Burroughs, Jim Mars, Stanton Friedman, Travis Walton, Paul Hellyer, Leslie Kane, Charles Halt, Don Schmidt, Francis Barwood, Nick Pope, Antonia Huneas, and we also have experiencer sessions with Barbara Lamb, the Skywatch with Jeff Willis, the cocktail party with live jazz, a pool party with live music, and a room full of wonderful vendors.
And you got our musicians for the pool party, and I love the name of the band.
Alejandro's Friends?
Yep, my buddies.
That's the name of the band.
Oh, no, that's not the name of the
band.
They'll probably change it soon, but...
Probably. Oh, the name of the band is Captain Squeegee.
Yep.
And they are thrilled to play, and they plan to have projectors set up, and they'll be showing some interesting UFO footage as they play.
Cool.
So it should be a good time as long as the weather holds out for us.
Yep, this is going to be great. And, you know, one guy I haven't had on the show, which people are really interested in seeing, is Lloyd Pye. I mean, we got a lot of requests. You got to have Lloyd Pye at the conference, so we are. And he has, if people aren't familiar with him, the skull that he's been researching, and it's a very strange shape, and he's researching the DNA, and he believes that he may be on to demonstrating that it has more than human DNA, and that he might be able to prove that he's got the skull of a human extraterrestrial hybrid. And
I'm excited to see Lloyd Pye.
Yeah, in a scientific way.
Well, I'm very excited for that. I am very excited for everything at the Congress. This is going to be an extremely exciting event, and Alejandro and I might be there for a little bit.
Yep. I might pass by.
Yeah. We'll be slaving away.
Slaving away the whole time, and I'm excited to see, because we've got so many great submissions at the film festival, who's going to win, because it's going to be a lot of fun to give away they've been sitting here in the office for a while, our EBE awards.
The EBEs are really cool. I want one, but I'm ineligible.
You could quit and then make a film.
I could, and I'm tempted to, because these things are so cool. So
yep, they're very cool. And I'm also then excited, too, about the other awards.
Yes, our other researcher awards, those are fantastic. That's a new addition to the Congress this year. So our Saturday night banquet and award ceremony is going to be a pretty excellent night.
And the conference is going to start off with a bang. This is really cool. Because I was going to do a year in review, to start off the conference. And I decided to get with Tom Ruffin, our video producer, to put it on video, because there's so much, and on video you can go through it quicker and more exciting. And he put together an incredible, 15-minute, little less than 15-minute video with all the news that's happened in the last year. And it's amazing to see how much has happened. Well, you've shared it with us over the last year. I'm really excited about that.
Well, that is a bang, a good way to start it off.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about a confetti gun or
No.
No. Well, I'm a little let down, but I'm still excited to see the video.
Yeah. Well, this is going to be better than the confetti gun, buddy.
Excellent. Well, everyone, that is it for the news. Remember to check out these stories and more at openminds.tv, your source for UFO-related news. I am Jason McClellan, your Open Minds news correspondent, and you've been briefed. Back to you, Alejandro.
Thank you, Jason. And just to let you all know, of course, we've been pretty busy with this, pretty busy with this conference. So we don't have a whole lot of feature articles up, but we do have some cool stuff. And of course, Jason puts up daily news articles. So about everything we talked about here, you can find out a lot more information. And also more information about Jack Pepin and his bid for mayor of Denver and his whole campaign, which looks kind of cool. So he's got a lot of stuff going on there, so that's going to be a lot of fun. But, of course, as Jason said, the Congress is the big focus for us right now, since we have little time to do a whole lot. Another story, too, that I think is interesting, and what we're seeing more is there's an article from Science and Religion that we posted today, and they're posting more and more articles kind of about extraterrestrials and belief in that sort of things. And in this article, they actually spoke specifically on paranormal beliefs and why some beliefs are more attractive to males while other to females, which is kind of interesting. As a paranormal researcher, there's no doubt that females always seem to be more interested in ghosty type stuff and ghost research, and then ETs and, well, at least UFO especially stuff is more kind of male oriented. So it's always kind of been known that I've heard certain guys that get into ghost hunting just to meet girls, and that's probably what I should have done, but instead I've gone into ET hunting, and that's been a lot of fun, but I have not met the girl of my dreams in ET hunting at this point. Other type of things going on. This is kind of funny because we saw these guys doing this, but ABC wrote about this documentary, and I might have talked about it, kind of a debunking documentary, and it was centered around this guy named Leroy Tessina, who was a paranormal researcher type of guy, and they followed him around, and the producers of this thing were Skeptic, and we did see these guys in Roswell, and I think they interviewed Maureen even, but luckily or hopefully she didn't make it into the show, because it turns out, just like kind of we suspected, it was a total debunking thing, and it was if you read what this guy has to say, it is unfortunate because really they didn't get into any real research. But the thing's called God Bless America, but they spell God G-A-W-D, and I just wanted to warn you so that if you run across this documentary when you're looking for something paranormal documentary to watch, that is one to steer clear of. Not cool. Not cool at all. So that's some of what's been going on with why we haven't gotten some stories up. But I think I told you guys all about last week. Also some Costa Rica stories that Antonio had written, since he's kind of our South American specialist. And some of the pictures and stuff that he wrote in his story. It's pretty cool because he was able to, go find some information that has been written about in Spanish but never in English before, and then translate that. So there are some cases, such as a case with some police officers who had a sighting, and the picture that they drew and the report that they had submitted, and that is all on here. And it's really, as far as we know, I think the first time that these cases have been seen in the English-speaking world. Otherwise, they've been kind of around the Spanish-speaking community has been aware of these. So it's kind of cool. We also posted some of the pictures from the newspapers that were posted, and you can see that. And they have some cool graphics, and then some of the actual people and places that these events took place. So that's a cool story to check out. But without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on our guest, the one and only Stan Romanek. Are you there? Hello, Stan?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you see me? Because I can't see you.
You can't see me? Well, I'm not sure. The video part where we're, just for the listeners, we're going to try to get some video on here so you'll be able to see Stan if you look on the, if you're watching on the video at Open Minds. But we're just testing that. So it may just be audio, and at least for now, it'll be audio. I don't know if we'll be able to get you to be able to see me, Stan. But I'm really not doing anything that interesting, just sitting here talking.
I saw you there for a minute, and then you disappeared.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, they'll work on it. Hopefully they'll get that so you'll be able to see me. So how you doing?
Doing good. Getting ready for this big conference up there where you guys are.
Yeah, it should be really exciting. I mean, we have a lot of people signed up, a lot of vendors. we're really excited about it. We should have a lot of people. And you have some surprises.
I do.
So you got your new book coming out, and that's what you're going to talk about, huh?
Yep, I've got actually 2 books coming out. I've got my second book, which is going to be answers, and then I've got the Orion regressions, the famous regressions that I've talked about briefly, but they're going to be put in transcripts and released to the public, and I think that'll blow everybody's mind.
Cool. And these were the regressions that were done by Dr. Leo Sprinkle?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So I can tell the audience that I was there for some of them, and the information, like you said, was pretty incredible, I thought.
It was. Just not only that, just some of the things that happened, the physical stuff that happened, especially in the last regression I did. It was pretty impressive, actually, and I'm going to show some of that stuff at the conference. I think people will be pretty fascinated by it.
Cool. So, and that's something to get into. Well, let's back up just a little bit, do a little bit of talking about your situation for those who might not know much about you. Like I said earlier, this whole thing started when you filmed some UFO videos, some pretty impressive mass UFO sightings.
Yes. Well, I met my wife online, as you know, around December 27, 2000. She lived in Nebraska, I lived in Colorado, and I wanted to entice her to come visit me, so I thought I'd send her a care package. I was going to videotape the surrounding area, go up to the Rocky Mountains, videotape that. And it was a beautiful summer afternoon. Actually, it was right about noon. Not summer, winter afternoon. And, I went the back roads up to the mountains, and I noticed some people had pulled off to the side of the road, and must have been 30, 40 cars or so. And they were looking south above some power lines that were off to my left, and I looked up to see what they were looking at. I thought at first it was some kind of strange hot air balloon. And then as I got closer, I realized it was actually a solid object, and when I got even closer, it was a UFO. And I didn't believe in this stuff, and I had my video camera with me, luckily, and figured nobody's going to believe me unless I get some footage of this thing, so that's how it all started.
Yep. And then since then, you got more video, and then, of course, then had physical effects. And with you, you remembered things that had happened to you or interactions prior to being regressed.
And it's not like, if people watch television a lot, they'll see these news programs, and they always have the same people say the same thing. It's sleep paralysis. But, that doesn't account for, like, Travis Walton or Betty and Barney Hill or myself. I was awake with my first abduction experience. I remembered everything. And I also, as a child, I had stuff happen, but I didn't really think about it until my first UFO sighting. And I started putting pieces together. It's like, oh, wow, I guess that really happened. So, I remember most everything, which is not very typical of what you hear about abduction scenarios. So apparently I'm different.
Right. And then, to kind of set the stage for this piece, you later underwent regressions, and the information that came out was, I felt certainly different than what you normally say or do. But with you, when you did these regressions, like with Dr. Sprinkle, what is it like for you?
Well, with normal regressions and with the ones with Dr. Sprinkle, those were not normal, as you well know. And I'll talk about that in more detail at the conference. When you go under a regression, it's not like, people it's not like what you see on TV. They can't control your mind. They can't make you, unless you want to, buck like a chicken. It's almost like you're in a deep daydream, basically. That's kind of, to me, what it feels like. It's set, and I'll set this up a little bit better. I was being regressed in the beginning by a person named Deborah Lindemann, very accomplished hypnotherapist. And it was the last time I was regressed by her, something happened. And it scared both Deborah and Lisa was there. And I honestly didn't remember a thing, which is typically not how regressions work. Usually you can remember most everything. Something happened. My mannerisms changed, my voice changed, and it was just for a minute or two, but it was enough to scare Deborah Lindemann to the point where she just brought me right out of the regression. She didn't know how to deal with it. Well, I stumbled onto Dr. Leo Sprinkle, who's, everybody knows, and if you don't know, this man is he's famous. He's very renowned hypnotherapist, University of Wyoming psychologist. The guy is brilliant, if you ask me, and he's just a sweetheart too. Well, we got hooked up with Dr. Leo Sprinkle, and
By me.
Yeah, by you actually. That's right. Thank you, Alejandro. I got to tell you,
I love that guy.
Yeah, he is a sweet guy. And yeah, you got us hooked up for sure. And so he did a regression, and something happened again. This time he just let it happen. And honestly, I thought I was under for about 10 minutes, and when I came out of it with no memory, I was under for a few hours. And something happened. And I don't want to ruin the punchline. I mean,
Right.
give you the punchline because I want to talk about it at the conference, but it was, trust me, it was astonishing. Well, you've been there, you know.
Mm-hmm. What I think is funny is, well, and of course, a lot of people take this subject and abductions very serious, and I understand that. But of course, one way that your family is able to deal with it, and those of us close to you, is of course by adding some humor to it. So,
You have to, people always ask me, well, how do you deal with this stuff? You make fun of it. You laugh at it. You have to, because that's really the only way you stay sane.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all the things we've experienced, we name them. Everybody that's involved in my case, and you're one of the top researchers involved in my case. Well, you were until you moved to Arizona, but they become family. And that's another thing that makes my case so different, and people need to understand this. Most of the stuff that seems to happen, especially lately, only seems to happen when there's people around. So anybody that gets involved gets to experience stuff.
Yeah. Well, and that's one important thing, I think, a unique aspect to your case, which I think is important too. And, a lot of what I used to do when being involved with your case, I used to tell people who were my friends or who were associates, who were investigators, to go out and to meet with you and your family, because you guys are very open to having people come out. And of course, then people such as Chuck Zukowski or some other people did go out there and hang out with you. And of course, then they, along with me and others, experience some of this stuff along with you and your family.
Exactly. And it continues even to this day. It's gotten so, it happens so much anymore that we've become kind of blasé about it. And I think that sometimes puts people off.
Mm-hmm.
Good example, we had some investigators over last year, and there was a big event that happened, and it freaked them out. I mean, it really upset them. And me and Lisa are like, so happens all the time. What can you do?
Yep. And I guess just to explain to people, I mean, even something as simple as simple, because I'm even blasé about something such as UFO sightings. Of course, that's exciting. There are some people who haven't had sightings who would like to have sightings. I was that way for a long time until I began to have my own sightings. And now I've had sightings, including sightings around you all, and a lot of people have sightings around you and your family, and that's something where, a lot of people get how people react even to something like that is sometimes they're fearful, sometimes they're excited, and sometimes they don't understand when people are blasé about those kind of things.
Well, and sometimes they don't believe it and think you're yanking their chain. And, as you know, this is a tough field to be in because there's so many people. And I've realized now, I was a skeptic. Why is a skeptic such a skeptic? And I can tell you it's mostly because of fear, because they don't, they live in this little bubble. And if anything upsets that little bubble, it freaks them out. And that's what happened to me. Mm-hmm. So understand, there have been some really mean people saying really mean things, but I have to understand that they're probably terrified to know that this is real. But guess what? You and I both know absolutely 100% this is real. How can it not be?
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's a good question. I think that could be something that could be helpful to others too, is how you deal with the fear. Because I know, being even when you asked me to be part of the case at the beginning, and I was able to come out after an event, the fear that you all experience and you personally have towards all of this. At the beginning, you were certainly fearful. Do you think that fear has tapered off, or are you still pretty fearful?
Absolutely. And I remember the first time you came out, how you couldn't fall asleep. You were so scared. So, so that's what happens. But
Thanks
I understand
for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I thought I had to put that out there. But see, that's because, you're human, and that's part of being human. People are afraid of what they don't understand. But when they understand it and they realize it's not going to hurt them, and they realize it's been around for thousands, millions of years maybe, it's just a part of who we are, they have to start getting used to it. Things are changing, things are shifting, and if they don't catch up soon, they're going to be left behind.
Well, how did you deal with that, though? How did you move from that state of more fearful to less fearful? What were some of the milestones or people or places or things that helped you along the way?
Well, honestly, I lucked out with my wife, because my wife believed in this stuff and I didn't. And it took me a few years to come to terms with it. But after it happened over and over again, and there were so many witnesses, it's like, well, so it's real. Now what do I do? Mm-hmm. And then you just work it through and honestly make fun of it. Laugh about it. Understand that it's probably a natural part of this existence, whatever this existence is. And try to learn from it, because when you learn, then it's not a mystery, then it's not scary.
Yeah, I definitely felt like when I first met you, and just to talk, Lisa, who you're referring to, is your wife, and she is just an amazing person, just such a grounded and stable person who, brings humor and is a very motherly type of person.
Absolutely.
And I think anybody who knows you for a while thinks that, wow, Stan probably would have gone raving mad if it wasn't for Lisa to be there to help him out. Right. Thank goodness you had her. But what would you advise to people who feel they're going through abduction experiences, how to deal with the situation?
Seek other people who are going through the experiences. I don't know for most people, but for me, it helped me to find out that I wasn't the only one, because there's an element of loneliness to this. One of the things about being, and I don't like to say abduction, there are various types of experiences. Some people are truly abducted. It's very scary, very terrifying, and some people have what I call contact. I've had both. And looking back, it's like, at least a couple of them, I think might have even been military, because it was about just trying to scare the heck out of me if I look back. And, some of the other ones seemed very polite. They didn't want to hurt me. They wanted to try to make me feel pain. Seek out people who are having experiences and talk to them, and try to get involved with, your local UFO organization.
Mm-hmm. You, Leo Sprinkle, and Deborah Lindemann, do you recommend, or did you find any pitfalls when it comes to working with therapists that are open to this and help people with it?
Well, things are definitely changing. When this first happened, I honestly thought it'd be easier for me to be stark raving mad than to deal with the reality that this was real. And I tried to make it or I basically tried to find out if I was crazy. And they kept saying, no, you're not. You have some post-traumatic stress disorder, but that's about it. So really, the best thing to do is try to find somebody within the field itself. Because if you go off to your local psychologist and say, look, I'm being abducted by aliens, that's going to freak them out because they're only human also, and they don't want the reality bubble burst. So they might say, okay, well, this guy's psychotic or whatever, when the reality is you really are having experiences. Unfortunately, there are some, especially in the UFO field, you and I both know this, Alejandro, there's some nutcases out there. And there's some people that just want attention. I don't understand it, but I've met a few of them. So, if you are truly having experiences, try to seek somebody out within the field to help you deal with it. Because if you go outside of the field, then you'll get ridiculed, even by, professionals.
Mm-hmm. Now, have there been times now that I know you are hesitant and you've been careful to not mention your experiences with things like doctors, because you've had some of these physical effects that we've talked about, and
sure,
like you've said, people are human and they get worried. But are there situations, have you been surprised at times when there have been people that have been open to your experiences?
Oh yeah. My doctor now, I had something happen not too long ago, and my doctor finally admitted to me he knew who I was. He actually read my book.
Really?
And he was completely open to it, and I was floored. I was thinking, I was looking at Lisa while we were in the doctor's office. He goes, by the way, Stan, I know who you are. It's like, oh no, I'm gonna have to change doctors. And honestly, he's been the biggest help. He's helped me figure out stuff. He's helped me figure out if things are normal or not normal. If I have anything happen, I'm supposed to go to him right away and help, try to figure it out. But I've had situations where, for instance, when I had the implant in my hip removed, and if you go to any of those listening, if they go to the conference, they'll hear me talk about this. I went to a normal doctor, and this was back when I didn't really know much about implants. I thought I just had some kind of sliver or something coming out of my hip. And, I didn't tell him what had happened prior to that. I just wanted to see what his reaction was. And honestly, it was priceless, because they couldn't explain what was going on. So, they came up with all these different things it could be, but still, they never came to a conclusion.
Right.
So sometimes it's better to do it that way.
Yeah. Well, let's examine this situation a little closer. So in this case, you had woken up with scoop marks and on your hip, and maybe you can explain that, and they fluoresced. So get into that a little bit.
Well, I had been abducted already once prior to this. I had woken up outside by a crabapple tree. All the doors were locked from the inside. The slide bolts were all locked from the inside. Couldn't figure out how I got outside. I was buck naked, 20-degree weather, freezing. Took me about a good 20 minutes, half hour. I'm surprised I didn't get hypothermia. I'm knocking on the windows to get Lisa up to let me in. Well, when she did, we realized I had more scoop marks on my back and I had a lump on my right hip. Well, as a year or two passed, I had another experience where I woke up in somebody else's clothing, and I had 3 puncture marks around that lump in my hip. And then maybe another 6 months, 7 months later, something started coming out of that lump. Like, it felt like I had a piece of glass. It didn't hurt, but it's like, what in the world? I kept picking at it, and it won't come out.
Yeah. And then I know at some point, and at what point did this happen where you put a black light on it and...
During my abduction experiences, especially my first experience, my friend Mark said, look, I was having a nervous breakdown. I really thought I was going just goofy. And so he said, look, we need to get, I know this group that might be able to help you. They might give you answers. And it ended up being a local UFO organization. And they came over and they said, well, if you've been abducted, and these are truly scoop marks, sometimes what will happen is if you turn on a black light, they'll fluoresce in the black light. Nobody really knows why. Well, sure enough, they turned on a black light, and I had scraped my knee, and we shined it on the scrape on my knee. It didn't do anything, but as soon as I got to those scoop marks or whatever they were, I lit up like a Christmas tree. And I got to tell you, it scared the heck out of me. I mean, and I tried everything. I tried Brillo pads, gasoline, fingernail polish remover, anything to try to get this stuff off, and it will come off. Just after about 90 days, it faded away.
So, and then this mark on your hip, the puncture marks, I just remember were in a triangle shape, and under the black light, they like created lines and that met in the middle.
Yeah, exactly.
So those were just really weird.
Yep.
And the reason I mention that too is just because that's such a weird thing, and it's something that I have witnessed. I remember the first time I investigated, a event with you, because that was new to me. The first time seeing a fluorescing, and of course I tried to scrub this stuff off with all kinds of different products or things, and to show that whatever was fluorescing was definitely under the skin.
Yeah, and it would come off. So what do? You just deal with it. It's like with everything, you deal with it.
Yeah.
If this would happen to anybody, they'd find a way to deal with it, just like I have.
Well, here's a question too. I already know, because I've been around this, but I think people would ask, well, if you have this fluorescing under your skin, why don't you show a doctor, or why don't you get it examined?
I did.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, everything. See, that's one of the things. I lucked out. I have a lot of really amazing people involved in my case, including you when you were involved, that helped me gather all this evidence. And I have boxes and reams of it, and it's been sent to, these various scientists and researchers and stuff. So, some of the stuff I've gotten back are, proteins that they can't identify, things that resemble chemicals that are used for in vitro fertilization, all kinds of just crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, and of course at times, and one of the reasons I bring up the fluorescing is that at least while we're with that, the fluorescing doesn't last too long, and unfortunately at that time we didn't have anybody who was willing or knowledgeable enough to take any samples, and of course that would mean a biopsy and some pretty specialized type of experiments.
Yeah, some of the stuff you can't catch everything, but we've captured so much.
Oh yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
The amount of evidence is astounding.
Yeah. So let's tell the people the next part of the story. You were getting there before I interrupted with the fluorescing stuff, but yeah, the implant, or the thing in the middle of the puncture wounds, was starting to come out, so you wanted to get that taken care of, right?
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't get it out, and I thought, well, I'm going to go to the doctor. Went to the doctor. They couldn't figure it out. They x-rayed it because they couldn't figure out why it wasn't coming out. And they said, well, it doesn't. We can see it on the x-ray, but it doesn't look like glass. It doesn't look like, metal. It doesn't look, because it doesn't have a very strong return on the x-ray. It has enough of one that you could see it, though. And they said, oh, leave it alone, it's probably just a fatty deposit. And I got upset. So like, look, it's coming out. So I was messing with it. And finally, we got the darn thing out. The doctor and I got the darn thing out. And when we did, it was, it had this like white fuzz all over it, like a moldy piece of bread or something. Mm-hmm. And once that white fuzz hit the oxygen or hit the air, it started liquefying and melting away. It was the weirdest thing. And I remember the doctor had those, those big magnifying glasses in the office. He put it under one of those. It's like, wow, that's the weirdest thing I ever saw. Put it in a test tube and gave it to me to send off to the researchers.
How did he react? How did he react when, of course, when you started, when he said he wouldn't take it out and you did your own thing?
Yeah, he goes, no. And then, by the time he got there, it was already done. And what's weird is when it came out of my leg, when we got it out of my leg, it created like a static shock that made my leg jump.
Mm-hmm.
So, and when he looked at it, he was baffled. He said, I can't tell you what this is. I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah.
And he had to see his next patient.
Yeah. So, and moving on then to, because I want to talk about, these physical effects and something that then I can relate to, or at least talk to, because I was present, around for the investigation of this, was your leg. And just another funny doctor reaction to what had happened with you. But yeah, maybe explain your leg situation.
That was, as you know, that was really an amazing thing. That pretty much changed everything for me. I was painting the eave of my house, and I was about 10 foot, 12 foot up a ladder, and I fell off and tore the anterior cruciate ligament and a hamstring in my right leg. I was supposed to go to surgery that next Wednesday to get that fixed. Well, Tuesday, the day before, the night before, it would have actually been Monday into Tuesday morning, I was abducted. And as with most of the times I'm abducted, for some reason all the power goes out, and Asta or I, when I get back, have to go flip all the breakers back on. Well, Lisa woke up about 2:30 in the morning, and I was missing, and all the power was out. Alarm clock, the clock was off and everything. So she got up. She couldn't find me anywhere. Went, flipped down the breakers. And then when she came back in, there I was, standing dazed in the middle of the living room. Well, for whatever reason, we just went back to bed. We don't know why. We didn't even think about it. When Lisa woke up the next morning to go to work, she was going to go to work before I did. She had to get in earlier. She noticed something out in the yard, and there was a circle approximately 11, 12 foot in diameter with concentric rings in the middle of our yard. Well, the interesting thing about that circle, that was about 6 o'clock in the morning when she found it. About 5 o'clock at night, that thing was dead. Just the grouse was completely dead. Well, she woke me up to come look at this circle, and I went to bed with this cast thing, or this brace on, from my hip all the way to my ankle. And she woke me up, and I went to go look at it. She goes, Stan, do you notice anything different? I go, yeah, there's a damn circle in our yard. She goes, no, do you notice anything else? It's like, hey, my brace, my cast is missing. And oh my gosh, I can walk on my leg. There's no pain. It's not swollen anymore. There's not even any bruising. Well, in the back of my leg, we noticed 5 very deep holes or puncture marks in the back of my leg. Whatever happened that night or that morning, they fixed my leg. They healed my leg. Mm-hmm. And the funny part of it was, we had to explain to my doctor why I didn't need surgery. And Lisa recorded the whole conversation.
Yeah, which was really funny because, I know, well, I guess I could see it on last year's UFO Congress because you played it there, or if I've seen you talk, or and you just hear how surprised this guy is.
Yeah. I'll play it again at this conference too, because everybody loves that.
Yeah, because he's so shocked, and he's like, you need to talk to the Ghostbusters. And then related to the marks on the side of your leg, because there were 4 marks on the side of your leg, and they fluoresced and all connected. And he was baffled as to what those were too, because he did not believe them to be bug bites or made from the brace.
Yeah, he was totally amazed, because he knew that I was supposed to go in for surgery, and suddenly I didn't need it anymore. Yeah. But what I find fascinating, and you guys came out, you were one of the first ones out to investigate this part. I found my brace on the side of the house, and it was completely just melted. It was like somebody hit it with a ray gun or something.
Yeah. I've told this story, and I think I've talked to you about it, because when we found it, there was a couple of metal bars, there was melted plastic, but there wasn't much left, and I was the one who collected that and took that back. And I remember when I talked to Nancy Talbot, who was involved at the time, explaining to her what I found, and I said, You know, Stan says it's this brace, which is a large one that goes from his hip to his ankle, and I didn't see the brace, so I was like, I don't think he's got it right. There's not enough metal. That had to have been a smaller brace. So I called Lisa up, and I said, Lisa, Stan tells me it's this brace. He's got to be wrong because this is a huge brace. And she said, no, he's right. And I was just shocked because there was nothing left of this thing. This thing was disintegrated, and there's practically nothing left of this really large brace that you had.
Yeah, and remember how you guys found bits and pieces out in the field and on top of the swing set as if someone threw it from a high elevation and it just landed in my yard?
Yeah, I even had to make a graph for Nancy. I'm pretty sure I sent you all that stuff.
Yeah, you did. I still have it. It's awesome.
But it was spread all over the place, which was just really shocking. And, you know, for me, of course, as an investigator, you always go through your head, okay, you know, just for my own sanity. At this point, I already knew something was going on, but thinking, okay, let's say somehow someone's trying to trick me or Stan's trying to trick me. Could he be able to do that? And you would have had to have, in the middle of the night, gone out and fried your brace in some strange way, put marks on the side of your legs, heal your leg, and mark your leg in a way that it fluoresced under the skin that would fool a doctor. It's an example.
How do you fix a torn ACL or anterior?
Right.
How do you do that? Come on, you know, that's... Yeah. And there's always going to be skeptics out there that are going to say, well, it could have been this. You know, I'm way past the UFO 101. I'm not going to explain myself anymore. You can either believe it or you don't have to. I understand why they're a skeptic, but there comes a time when it's enough is enough.
Yeah.
I mean, what more evidence do you want? People always say, I'll believe it when UFOs come land on the White House lawn. Well, guess what? They tried. We shot at them. In the 40s, there's evidence, you know, they've got video. So then what do? You know, sometimes there's nothing that'll convince these people.
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing with that case, well, not just the circle, but, well, I guess with the case prior as well, and the implant, I mean, I never saw the implant myself, but one of the people, of course, like I mentioned, who was involved with Nancy, and she's someone I definitely trust. But is that this physical piece, the physical evidence, and how do you deal with, I guess, when people ask, you know, why you? Why is it different for you? Why do you have the physical evidence and everything, whereas that typically isn't a part of other people's experience?
Generally, it's not, but you know what? I'm really not the only person that is coming back with evidence, especially lately. There's a lot of things that seem to be changing about this experience for people. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know why me. You know, I feel like I've been chosen, you know. I mean, why else? I honestly have, there's a reason for this. I truly believe, I don't believe in chance. I have a message to tell people, and, you know, maybe that's why. Other than that, you know, I don't have a clue. And what's interesting, too, is at these UFO conferences, you always run into people that say they have the answer. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Alejandro, just even being involved in my case, I've been through a lot. And you've been through a lot even being involved in this case. And I know less now than I ever did before. The more I learn, the less I know. So how can those guys possibly have the answers when I'm not any closer than anybody? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, because I talk about this a lot with other researchers. And, you know, I think you can read throughout the years different wise elders who have said the same thing. The more we learn, we need to learn. The more we discover, the more we learn that we have to discover. So the people who, have all the answers
are usually the clueless ones.
Yeah, that with the least answers. What do you think about when you do see these people, though? These people who believe they're having experiences such as yours, getting messages, like your book called Messages, and you get messages or have gotten messages, who then believe that these are the answers and the end-all be-all. I mean, can you blame them, or do you think those people are typically not really experiencers, or...
I can't blame them, you know, and I can't judge people because I'm sure, and I know there's people out there that think I'm just whacked, and that's their prerogative. I know what I'm going through is real. I can't judge people because I've gone through some amazing, bizarre stuff. So how do I know for a fact that they haven't? Generally speaking, you can usually tell when somebody wants attention, and sometimes you can't. But really, you know, you just have to go with your gut feeling, I guess.
Earlier, you said that you have a message. You have, and that could be why you're chosen. Well, what is that message?
That we aren't the only ones out there. That there are other things out there, and it's time for us to understand that, respect ourselves, stop playing these stupid games, and grow up. Because if we want to become part of the neighborhood, then we have to start evolving spiritually and understand that this petty warring crap, this stealing and all this dishonesty, and, you know, it has to stop. You know, people are bigoted just because somebody looks different. You know, they don't like if somebody's, you know, brown or black or a different color or a different religion. How are we going to accept anything out, you know, that's living out in the universe when we can't even accept ourselves? And so I'm here to say, look, man, it's time to grow up, guys. Because if we don't, we're going to probably perish.
Do you think that soon will be the time where we will become part of this galactic neighborhood? You know, where, I mean, some people seem to already be having experiences with extraterrestrials.
Absolutely. I mean, you and I both know just about every country in the world is opening their files. You know, except for a few of them, like the United States. The Vatican a few years ago even, you know, came out, some people from the Vatican came out, Monsignor Balducci, and then other people backed that up. It's, I mean, everything you see on TV about UFOs and aliens, everything in the movies now, there's all these stuff, and it's part of the process. It's part of that getting the human race ready process. Because I got a feeling there's going to be a big event soon. I mean, everybody's waiting for the shoe to drop, and I honestly believe that's what's going to happen.
So, and you think it will be possibly them even exposing themselves greater than they have?
Oh, yeah. They're already doing it. I mean, they're doing Mexico City, Brazil, China are having these massive sightings, these huge, you know, sightings all the time now. It seems like they're ramping things up because they're tired of waiting for you know, these who are supposed to be working for us, these governments that are, you know, all about control. They don't want to lose control, so they don't want this information out. But the guys upstairs are sick of it. It's like, look, this race needs to start evolving spiritually, mentally, physically. And the only way to do that is to understand that, look, we have neighbors. And if we're going to be part of that system, we have to understand that we have neighbors.
Do you think most of the public is ready or evolved enough to handle this, and that it's just the elitist controllers that aren't? Or do you think, well, I guess you just answered it, sure. Or are there a lot of people, too, you think that have some work to be done?
The elitists and the controllers don't want us to be ready for it because they want to keep the control. The only trouble is we're outgrowing them. We are becoming enlightened despite them. Pretty soon they're just going to be left behind. And they better start catching up. Honestly, if you look at, I couldn't say this even 5 years ago, but if you look at public opinion polls now, you bet, I know they're ready. People talk about it all the time. More people believe in UFOs than not. More people believe that aliens are on this planet than not. So yeah, I know they're ready.
So then, do you feel pretty positive about the future?
I do. I absolutely do. You know, there's this big thing going around that doomsday is coming because of 2012. But honestly, I don't believe in the doomsday scenario. In fact, if you talk, it's all about this Mayan calendar. Some English guy started this fiasco where the Mayan calendar ends, so that means the world's going to end. And if you talk to the Mayan elders today, they think white people are crazy.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that its calendar change is just another change. In fact, well, have you seen Rainbow Eagle speak, right?
Sure. Oh yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he's great. He'll be at the Congress because he talks similar thing about how there are other Native American calendars, and it's more of an evolution of more of a new age that's coming.
That's what I believe. I believe there is a shift coming. One of the things I'm going to talk about in my book is I'm learning the human race doesn't really know who they are. We've been subdued because the things that are trying to control us are afraid of who we are. Once we learn who we are, it changes everything. Mm-hmm. And this thing that's going to happen in 2012 is because of us. You know, there is going to be a shift. And you know what? I think it's going to be a positive one. I really do.
Mm-hmm. Well, then, do you think, and thinking back to Stephen Hawking's comments not too long ago, but I mean, considering your message, that it's mostly positive, the things visiting us and the extraterrestrial civilizations that are...
I can't say that. You know, there's really, just like it is here, what's going on here reflects what's going on in the universe, pretty much. There is good and bad here as well as out in the universe. There's a lot of bad things out there that are trying to control and use us, and there's good things out there trying to help us. And here's the key: if we want to evolve, we have to do it ourselves. Mm-hmm. That is part of the initiation. As soon as we ask for help, number one, we aren't sophisticated enough to figure out really who is out to get us and who is not, because they're very intelligent beings out there. The good guys say, hey, let them do it themselves because that's the only way they'll learn. And really, that's the honest to God's truth. We have to come to terms with this on our own. We can't, as soon as we ask for help, we're indebted to the people we ask for help from. Mm-hmm. And that's not a good thing, because we can't discern who's good or who's bad yet.
Right. And so, but by ourselves, we can move along.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And who we are as a species is so much more than we understand. Mm-hmm. And I think the hardest thing for the human race it's going to be the hardest thing for the human race to accept is the fact that we are the hybrids. And, that's going to flip some people out.
Yeah. Well, and getting back to, or getting to hybrids and abductions can be a scary thing for people. I know it has been a scary thing for you.
Absolutely.
Do you see that as a malicious act?
I'm kind of torn because they do take you against their will. But I've had different experiences. I've had experiences where, they were polite and they wanted to give me information, and it was more a contact scenario. I've had situations where it was absolutely terrifying, and I had nightmares and couldn't sleep with the lights off for months. Mm-hmm. And you hear both sides of it. There are different things out there that have different agendas. Some are here to help and some aren't. And that's really the only way I can explain it.
Yeah, which makes sense. And I want to get more into hybrids, but I did want to explain myself a little bit when you said I couldn't fall asleep, which is true. And since you talked about not being able to fall asleep again, the only reason I bring this up is because it was an extraordinary experience that I had with you all. Is that when I came to investigate that first abduction, which was that I happened after I had worked with you all, which every single situation you've had has had a whole set of extraordinary things that have happened, including that one. But in this one, that night that I came, we were hearing loud noises, big bangs on the roof, taps on the windows, like someone was throwing stuff, even when we were outside. So all of this, of course, really kind of freaked me out. And I could tell at that time, too, that Lisa, who was staying up with me and we were talking, was kind of freaked out. And I could tell, that it was stressful for
Oh,
you
yeah.
all.
Oh, yeah. And you got to wonder if these guys just don't have a sense of humor in their thing.
Mm-hmm.
Say, hey, let's make the monkeys dance,
Mm-hmm.
because now you just ignore it. Good example, just not too long ago, my stepdaughter April's boyfriend and her were down in her room watching TV, and she has a rocking recliner. You remember those blue rocking recliners we have.
Mm-hmm.
The darn thing started rocking back and forth, and it went on for a half hour. And her and her boyfriend were down there just absolutely, cuddled up to each other, trying to figure out what the heck was going on. That's just normal stuff. And these are the real abduction experiencers. These are the real experiencers have that high strangeness thing that happens.
Right.
So, everything and anything paranormal starts to happen to these people for whatever reason.
Well, and the funny thing is, now that you bring up your stepdaughter, is that your stepdaughters were skeptical of things happening around you, even though they experience things. And how do they cope with it now?
Oh yeah, they'll talk about it now, but that back then, anything that wasn't cool and going to frighten their friends away, they wouldn't admit to it.
Right.
Trouble is, most of their friends come over to experience stuff.
Yeah.
So, I've got tons and reams of witness reports from all these kids they know that just come out, hang out because they want to experience stuff, and they do. So, now they're cool with it and they'll talk about it. And in fact, April did a thesis on the abduction experience for her college class.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So, she's changed.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I remember, my first UFO sighting with you all, again, speaking of her, was we were outside on the deck and we see what seems to be a lot of satellites, and I say this because they look like satellites. They were moving in a straight line at a good speed, but we're seeing a lot of them, one after another, which was kind of weird. And then one of them I saw, and she saw it with me, made this J-hook maneuver and faded out. And I always remember this because it was funny, because she said, oh, there's nothing going on. And I said, well, did you see that? And I was all excited, and she says, yeah, big deal. And I said, well, it just did this little half circle and faded out. She says, I see satellites do that all the time. I told her, they're not supposed to do that. And she's like, oh, really?
She's the stuff she sees, and she just kind of blows it off now. I mean, her and her friends see stuff here all the time.
Yeah. Well, I wanted I wanted to get that story out, but I did want to pursue further the hybrid situation because, just like in a lot of abductees, such as we were talking about earlier in our news section about a gentleman in Hoboken who's an artist who is drawn about his abduction experiences and how he believes he is part of a hybridization program and he has hybrid children.
Absolutely.
And it seems something similar is happening to you as well.
Oh yeah, you know the story. Again, this is not typical of the abductionists, or maybe it is. I don't know. I don't know too many other than what I have to go through. But when I'm taken, there was always a woman there with me. And I eventually met the woman that I was taken with all these many years, and we became very close friends, and you know her as Victoria. And I found out later that my wife was also taken, and our friend Heidi was taken. Well, oddly enough, this started, I knew this for a while, but we had a situation where my wife had a surprise book release party for me. I just became a best-selling author, and she threw a surprise party for me. And it was about 9 o'clock at night, and it was raining outside, and I see this little girl standing at the edge of our driveway in the pouring rain. I'm thinking, what crazy neighbor would let their kid out this late and in the pouring rain, and why is she wearing a gray jumpsuit? I went outside to see if I could help her, and she ran off. Well, I came back and told everybody about it, and you were there. And you know, it happened again. I went outside and you know, she was looking at me. I went outside and I had my camera with me, and it was really dark, so I was using the flash of the camera as a light. And she popped her head out from behind this tree, and I got a picture of her. And I was just dumbfounded. I was shocked. I was standing there looking at this picture, and one of the researchers, you know, Rick, came up to me and goes, Stan, what happened? And I couldn't even talk, and I showed him the picture. He goes, oh my God, you got to show everybody. So, you know, we came back in and showed him this amazing picture of this angelic looking girl who, you know, for a fact wasn't altogether human, just because her eyes were just absolutely massively huge, very slanted, just, I mean, the shape of her head was just so bizarre. And, you know, they got to all see this angelic face. Well, and it's been so long, you're going to have to help me with this part. You know, everybody told me that I should put this picture on the computer. And we were walking down the stairs, and the camera went beep, and the picture disappeared. And I don't remember, Alejandro, was it like a minute or 10 minutes after that happened that we got that phone call?
It's hard to say because, of course, we were all so excited because the sequence of events tried to get down to the computer, because I know I was like, get that on the computer, get that on the computer. And then, of course, on the way to the computer, it disappeared off the camera. And then we came upstairs, and everybody was excited talking about it. It probably wasn't very long. It was probably like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm thinking 5 minutes, but 5 minutes, you know, after the picture disappeared, got a phone call, and this little girl said, "Daddy." It's like, well, I've got my own daughter, and then I've got 2 stepdaughters and a stepson, and I've never heard this voice before. This little squeaky little squeak of a voice says, "Daddy," and I go, "Yes." And she goes, "Don't worry, I love you. We'll get to meet again sometime." And then, you can tell the rest. I just fell apart. I was sobbing.
Yeah, you definitely. At that point, yeah, because me and Lisa were the ones who noticed, there's a phone call. This must be weird. And so we followed you, and you couldn't even explain what happened on the phone call because you got so emotional and you had to go into another room. And I gave you space because I saw how emotional you are. And for a guy, of course, we don't like to be emotional around people. But Lisa, of course, your wife followed you in and got more of the information from you. But definitely, yeah, and a unique experience. And, of course, you've had more since than I know of. But what do you think then is going on with this hybrid? Why do you think this is happening?
Well, for some people, and again, it's depends on what's doing it, what's creating these hybrids. I think there's some things that are making these beings to replace us because they have an evil agenda, and I think there's some things out there that are making these to counteract that, or to help us. Again, I'm not an expert. It's just my own theories, my own thoughts. Maybe somebody somewhere knows the truth, but I know these things are real. I mean, I had a phone call. I mean, they call us every once in a while. As weird as that is, we've got recordings of these calls, and they show up at my conferences sometimes. As you very well know, I was at the Aztec UFO conference. We got a call from one of these kids saying, we'll show up. And sure enough, there were witnesses. I've got witness reports. And it was this, talk about conspiracy, this conference was held at a Masons club, this huge Masons club in Aztec, New Mexico. And even the head Mason saw this kid and freaked out, these kids, and freaked out because they weren't human. Everybody could tell they weren't human.
Yeah.
So what do you do? I mean, just more evidence.
Yeah. And I gotta say, honestly, even talking about that experience with the picture and these things, I even feel a little bit uncomfortable talking about it. And I think it's just because it is so
woo-woo.
Woo-woo. It's so wild. It's unique to the phenomena, but in the same turn, it's exciting if there is an evolution to where possibly we're moving to a stage where we can communicate, maybe even face to face with,
It's guess what? It's already happening. People need to get over this woo-woo thing with this subject. The abduction scenario is real, and it is the hardest to accept. It is because it's scariest.
Mm-hmm.
But people need to understand that there's stuff out there that really is happening. I mean, there's so much there's evidence in the Bible. It's been going on for thousands of years, in 14th century frescoes, and painted cave paintings, and tombs of pharaohs. There's all this evidence. It's like, when are people going to finally snap out of it and understand, what's been going on?
Well, it's exciting because we only have a few minutes left. It's exciting that you have another book coming out. I know your first book has done well, and I keep hearing from a lot of people who have read it, which is great. And you could still get it. I see it always at Barnes & Noble and Borders.
Sure.
Now you have these other books coming out, because I know, and just for listeners who have been asking, there have been several video projects in the works that somehow these things just keep getting delayed. And I know not by your fault, or maybe nobody's fault. Everybody's trying to get the ball rolling here, but they just things seem to not work out.
Well, we're finding out that whenever the funding comes up, these funders get scared away by somebody or something. So, that's just another part of this. You just keep moving forward. Now, with this second book, I'm going to do everybody a favor, and if they go to the UFO Congress conference, we're going to hand out, we made 1,000 CDs, and they get 2 chapters from my second book free. This book is so important. I can't just, I want it to get out sooner than later. So we're releasing it as it goes, and you can go online and pre-order. You can order chapter by chapter, or you can order it, the full book when it's done, or you can get it through Kindle or whatever you want. But we'll be giving out free chapters when we get to the UFO conference.
Cool. And I want to let people know we're on Skype, and Stan's on the speaker on Skype. That's why you hear some of the noises in the background. It almost sounded like a minute ago a Harrier jet was taking off. But I know it's your laptop fan probably.
I didn't hear a thing. There was no sound on my end.
Well, yeah, we can hear the fan and stuff sometimes. But that's why, and the reason that we did that is so that you'll be able to see Stan on the Skype video, which is going to be really cool. So if you're watching on the Ustream, you can see that, or we'll also have that up on our YouTube video, because we always put these up on YouTube as well. So people will be able to see Stan talking as we talk back and forth. So, and then I guess, you've already talked about you're going to put out the couple chapters in your book. And then as we close here, and I also want to mention StanRomanek.com is where you can get more information about Stan and information about his book. But what other kind of topics are you going to hit at the Congress? Of course, you have less time than you usually take.
Yeah, it's going to be, I'm only going to speak about an hour, then I'm bringing somebody, author, me write my second book. His name is G.W. Harden. I'm a best-selling author, but he's a New York Times best-selling author.
Oh, wow.
And we've got a lot of really cool new stuff, especially at the end of my presentation. We're going to blow you away. I don't want to give it all out right now because I want you to come see me talk.
Awesome. Well, really exciting. I want to thank you for being on the show again. It's always a lot of fun, and I know people, it always is very controversial when we have you on the show, which is just fine, because it's good to talk to you again, and I'm going to be really happy to see Lisa, because I just love the heck out of the family, and I miss you guys, so it'll be good to see you again.
Yeah, we miss you too, Alejandro. Hey, guess what? No threats this time, huh?
Yeah, great. Thank goodness.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right. Thanks for being on the show, Stan.
You
See
bet.
you in a little bit.
All right. See you there.
All right. Well, that was Stan Romanek, and that was a lot of fun. I think that was the first time we got the Skype video working here, so hopefully we'll do that again in the future. It's kind of cool to be able to have the guest on video while we're talking to them. But otherwise, we're going to take a break after the conference. So the conference ends on Sunday, so we're not going to have a show on Monday. We are going to relax on Monday because we've been so hard at it. But we'll be back on, what is that, the 28th, I guess next month, with more exciting guests. So thank you for listening to Open Minds Radio. Be sure to check out openminds.tv for more UFO news. Talk to you later.